like I'm crooked. Am I crooked? Hello? This is gonna drive me crazy. Maybe it's because this is crooked. I don't feel like I'm straight. Am I straight? The struggle. The struggle of trying to film a YouTube video. Yo, these are so good. Like, where have these things been my whole life? They're so good. Okay. I need to focus. Okay. What's up, guys? It's Courtney. Welcome back to my channel. I finally redid my hair. Okay, I need to get into this. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Hello, hi, how are ya? Oh god, I just kicked my phone. So today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys another story time. Well, it's not going to be one story. It's going to be like 3 stories. But I'm just going to put them into one video because they're not long enough to make into one big video. So, I'm just like not here today. But I want to film. Do you see my Muffy? Look at her. Hey, Muffy. Is she not so precious? Hello, baby. She's so cute. She's so distracting. I just want to stare at her. Okay, so let's just get into this. So, I'm going to be telling you like customer horror stories type of thing. Oh my god, I'm still like sick. Like my throat hurts. It is so aggravating. Okay, I'm going to be telling you some like customer horror stories from when I worked at a grocery store. So I worked at Winn-Dixie. Oh my god, that's going to be really annoying if I have to do that this whole time. I worked at Winn-Dixie. I started there when I was 15. Yeah, I was 15. I started there in August of 2011, and I was 15. And then a month later was my birthday, is in September, and I turned 16. So I worked there for 7 years. I literally just left there like last year. Like this time last year is when I finally like left completely. I would work there and then I have another job, but I would always stay there because that was like my safety kind of job, if that makes sense. Like I knew everybody, and I knew they would like still let me work there while I was finding different jobs. So I have a lot of stories about Winn-Dixie, and a lot of stories about really rude customers. You literally get cussed at like every day working in a grocery store because people are so darn mean. They would blame me or us if prices were wrong or if stuff was too expensive. I'm like, I literally just work here. Like, I don't make the prices. I don't decide how much something is. Just let me scan your damn groceries and just go on with your day. Like, why do you have to cuss me out? Like, I didn't do anything to you. And I started as a cashier, and then I moved up and I was a service lead, which basically is like the it's like the store manager, the assistant store manager, and then there's like different department managers, like a service manager and like a grocery manager. So I was under the service manager, but I honestly did everything for the service manager. Like I made sure if there was any complaints, people would go through me before we had to go to the service manager. I was making the schedule. I was doing everything. And then I ended up dropping down because I found another job because I was over working at Winn-Dixie. But yeah, that has nothing to do with the story. But I just kind of wanted to give you a little background of how long I was working there, what I was doing, yada, yada, yada. So the first story starts when I was I started as a cashier and then I moved up to self-checkout. So this story was when I was at self-checkout. I wasn't a lead or anything, but I was, responsible enough and good enough to where they thought I could move up from a cashier to work the self-checkouts. So I also worked at 2 different ones. I worked at one for a few years, and then when I was promoted to a service lead, I transferred to another store. So this story this story takes place in the first store. I was only working for Winn-Dixie for probably like 2 years at this point. I don't know exactly how long, but long enough to where they felt I was responsible enough to work at self-checkout. On this particular day, I was working self-checkout. I remember I was working in the morning and I was expected to be off soon. So I'm standing at self-checkout. When you're at self-checkout, you kind of just like stand around and make sure, nobody's stealing, nobody's like just throwing stuff in bags. You clean all the self-checkout scanners, that kind of thing. It's really you standing there for 8 hours just watching. And like when the light goes off, then you go over and help the person or whatever. So on this day, I remember I was getting off soon because I was there in the morning. But I want to say this was a little later in the afternoon, so probably about 12 or 1 o'clock. So at this point, there was nobody at the self-checkout, so I'm kind of like wandering back and forth, trying to find something to do. And then a lady comes up to use it. She has a thing of ground beef. It's like it's a little pack, and you scan it, and that's what she had in her hand. But I noticed that she was really drunk, I think, or she was on some kind of drug, because she was not walking straight at all. She had her sunglasses on, swaying when she walked. When she got up to scan her ground beef, it wasn't like working or anything, so she was getting frustrated. She was like hitting the screen. That happens all the time. I don't understand what hitting the screen is gonna do for you. Like, it's a machine. I don't understand what doing this on the screen when it's not working is going to do and accomplish. But she was getting really frustrated because her ground beef wasn't scanning, and she was like mumbling and just acting ridiculous. So I walked over to her to help her. So I kind of she was standing right in front of the screen, and I was next to her. I was like, "Hi, do you need help with anything? Do you need me to help you scan that?" She's like, "Just get away from me, away from me." And I was like, okay. So I like backed off. She just throws it in the bag. She doesn't scan it or anything. And I noticed her just throw it in the bag. And I kind of like walked past and saw that it wasn't ring up. So I went over to her. I was like, "Ma'am, let me help you scan this because we need to scan it in." I scanned it for her and then put it back down. She is trying to pay. At this point, we had like a little chip, so she's putting her chip card in. But on the self-checkouts, you have to hit that you're done scanning and how you want to pay. She didn't hit any of that on the screen. She just put her card in, and nothing was happening because she didn't finish what she had to do on the screen. So I walked over, I hit that she was finished scanning, and I went to hit how she was paying, and she smacked my hand. Like, my hand was up, and she just smacked me. And at first I was like, she really just hit me? I like put my hand down and I looked at her, and she was like, "Get the fuck out of here." I was like, okay, so I just left. But she still had to hit how she was gonna pay, or else, she wouldn't finish anything. So I was like, "Ma'am, you have to say how you're going to pay, because you have to hit that you're paying with a card or that you're paying cash or whatever." And she wasn't hitting anything, so she was just standing there waiting. I was like, "Ma'am, you have to hit how you're gonna pay in order for it to process your card." And she's like, "No, I don't. You don't know what you're talking about. Get away from me. Get away from me." I was like, all right. So she's literally standing there for like 5 minutes. And like the light begins to blink because it thinks like, it's like kind of saying that it needs somebody like me to go over to the machine and figure out what's going on. So I walked back over. I just hit on the screen that she was paying with a card. And she smacked me again. And this time I looked at her, I was like, don't you put your hands on me again. I've never been like, a customer like cussed me out and all that stuff before, but I've never been like hit, like somebody's never hit me like that. And at that point I was like tired of it. And I said, don't you hit me ever again. And I walked away. And then she finished what she had to do on like the keypad. She had to walk by me to get out of the door, and she pushed me. She like bumped into my shoulder. I was like, lady, you're like 50 years old. Please don't get smacked up today, because it will happen. It's like, Jesus. People really suck. Like, who hits somebody for trying to help? Don't smack my hand away. Like, ugh, I can't. So that was the first story. The second story happened like years after. By this point, I was a service lead, so I was at the second Winn-Dixie location. At this store, like obviously we have to give people breaks. So we had a self-checkout person, but she had to go on break. Me being, you know, the person running the front, I had to go down to self-checkout and, you know, stay in there and watch it while the self-checkout girl went on her break. And then I see a couple walk up. They had like a full cart of stuff, which, you know, whatever, if you want to scan that many things, that's fine. So I was standing there. The woman is definitely on something. Like the first lady, she was either drunk or she was on drugs, something. She was mumbling, she was trying to scan the groceries and she'd like stumble backwards. Her husband was just like annoyed, like you could tell he was really embarrassed. He was kind of just like, like stressing out. What was it? It was ground beef again. Why is it always the ground beef? They had a big old pack of ground beef. It wasn't scanning in. I think the barcode might have been like folded a little bit, so I wasn't reading it completely. So she's like trying to get it to scan, and she slams it down. She's like, are you gonna fix it? And like I walked over and I like just typed it in and I set it down in her bag and I walked away. She's like, you're a bitch. And I literally did nothing but scan in your ground beef and walk away. Like, what do you mean I'm a bitch? What did I do? When she said that, I was walking away, so I turned around and looked at her, and I was just like, and then I just kind of kept walking. Like, I laughed in her face. She would keep scanning stuff. She'd be saying stuff to her husband, like, fuck this bitch, she's a little bitch, blah, blah, like, constantly calling me a bitch when I was literally just standing there. They had like a bunch of sodas on the bottom. The husband asked if I could do like a quantity thing so they didn't have to scan each one. So I walked over, scanned my little card, did like a quantity thing, and took care of all that for him. And then I walked away. And she was like, thank you. And then I looked at her. I didn't say anything, but I smiled and I nodded. Like, I didn't say you're welcome because I was pissed off that she was disrespecting me and calling me a bitch. But I was still trying to be as professional as I could, because at this point I didn't really want to lose my job, but you know, if someone's gonna disrespect me, then I'm going to defend myself. So she was like, thank you, and I just smiled and I nodded my head. But she didn't like that I didn't say you're welcome, so she looked at me again and she was like, I said thank you. And I was like, you're welcome. Like in the exact same tone she gave me, I gave it back to her. And she just like stared at me, and I was staring back at her like, please make me get fired today, because I'll be okay with it if you want to try something with me. I just was standing there, like, they had to walk by me to leave, and she pushed my shoulder, and I kind of did it back, and she turned around and started yelling at me, started cussing at me, and I was like, bye, have a great day, bye, have a good day, like being bitchy and nice at the same time, if that makes sense. Like telling her to have a good day, but the tone and the sarcasm in my voice, you could tell I was being a little bitch about it. But I mean, don't be a bitch to me and I won't be one back. I mean, I don't know what to say. I literally was helping her and she wanted to be a little asshole. With that lady, I was ready to go. Like, if I was waiting for her to do something. There were times like throughout when they were scanning stuff, I'd be kind of like standing near them in case they needed my help, and she'd walk up and get like right in my face and be like, are you gonna fucking do something? I'd like give her an attitude back or be like, what do you need me to do for you? I wasn't trying to be rude, but I don't like being disrespected when I didn't do anything wrong. I had to go outside for something when they were in the parking lot loading stuff up. I think the self-checkout girl came back and we were low on carts. So I went out to help the bagger get some carts, and they were in the parking lot like loading their groceries in, and she was yelling stuff to me, and I was just like, what's up? Like, I'm here. What do you need? I'm right here. They left, and then I actually saw her like a week later, and she was so nice to me. She went through self-checkout again, and I coincidentally happened to be at self-checkout, and she was super nice. So this last story was probably the scariest one. This story, I was at the second location, so I was still the service lead. I can't remember why, but for some reason, our lottery machine was down. Like, I wasn't able to scan in tickets. I think maybe there was like a storm, so the machine was down. I was able to sell scratch-offs, but if somebody won, I couldn't scan it in for them and give them the money for it. And I would make sure I told customers like, hey, my machine's down. I can't check them. Like, if you win money, you can't get the money from me. But we had 2 gas stations right across the street that they could easily go to. And a lot of people were, you know, fine with it. So I had this one guy come in. Just like the other 2 ladies, he was on drugs. Definitely on drugs. He wasn't drunk, he was on drugs. So he comes in, he buys a scratch off, and I told him, like, I can sell you this, but if you win, I cannot cash it because my machine is down. He's like, okay, whatever, I don't care. I was like, okay, this is gonna be great. You know when you just get like a bad feeling about somebody, like you know something's gonna happen? That's how I got as soon as I saw him walk up to the desk. I got this really bad feeling like something's gonna go on with this guy. Like, he's not gonna be very nice. So he gets like a $2 scratch off. You know, he's at the desk scratching it. I go about what I'm doing, like wandering around or doing what I need to do. He wanted me to check his ticket, and I said, sir, I'm sorry, I can't. My machine is down. And he went off on me. Like, he was leaning over the desk trying to grab me and cussing me out and calling me an effing B and you're a see you next Tuesday. He ended up calling me like racist or something, and I'm like, how? You're a white male. What do you mean? Like, how am I racist when I can't scratch in your lottery ticket after I told you my machine was down? He was literally leaning, like I had to be against, there was like a wall behind the desk. I was against the desk, and he was literally like crawling over the desk and cussing me out and wanting to like beat me up. He was yelling so loud and so much that the whole the whole grocery store was silent. Silent. Like, do you know how loud grocery stores are? When you go in the grocery store, you're always hearing people walking and, you know, cashiers ringing stuff in. So you hear like beep, beep, beep from all of the items being scanned. It was dead silent. Everybody stopped what they were doing and they looked over and saw this man literally cussing me out. I got scared because it makes me very uncomfortable when people are under the influence of something. Like, I get really anxious, and I was afraid he was literally gonna come over that counter and beat the shit out of me because I couldn't ring in his lottery ticket. He ends up walking out, and he's cussing at me the whole time he's walking out. Nobody said anything. No grown men customers were all looking over at me. Nobody said anything. Nothing. I just don't like being around people that are under the influence of something because I don't know what they're gonna do. Like with the 2 ladies, I wasn't scared at all. But this guy, he was so aggressive. So he leaves, and I call my manager up, and I told her what happened. She was like, okay, if he comes in again, you call me and we will call the police. At this point, my desk person comes back because we have somebody that works at the desk, and she was on a break. And I told her like, hey, this guy literally just cussed me out. If he comes back in, then we need to call our manager and let her know so that she'll call the police. He ends up coming back in. I told my desk person, like, hey, this is the guy that was just cussing me out. He ends up freaking out on her too, because he tried to get her to scan in the lottery ticket, but she was like, our machine is down, I can't. I started cussing her out and doing the same thing and trying to reach over the desk and grab her. So I called the manager, she comes up. The manager's trying to get him to relax and he's like, fuck you, bitch, like going off. So the desk person calls the police while he's going off on her and the manager. And she's on the phone with the police and they could hear what he's saying. He walks out again and then the police come. He ended up getting arrested. He was under the influence of some kind of drug, I don't know what, and he ended up being trespassed. Is that trespass? You know what I mean. So he wasn't allowed to go in Winn-Dixie ever again. And I never saw him after that day. Thank God. Apparently he was also causing issues with the gas stations across the street. He would go over there and try and, you know, fight people and be crazy, and he was trespassed from over there too. So he wasn't allowed to go around anywhere. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure you give me a big thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. The red button is down below. Let me know if you like these kind of stories. I'll think of more customer horror stories because I have a bunch. And I will see you guys on my next video. Bye guys!